Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Today, we have at our Thursday talks two very special guests. We have MP Chandra Arya, that represents Nepean in the Ottawa region, and we have the pleasure of having with us Mr. Prasad Panda, Infrastructure Minister of Alberta. It is a huge privilege for all of us at the chamber to have both these gentlemen with us. We are starting a series where we are going to be talking to Indo-Canadian leaders from coast to coast, and I have been told that the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce sometimes is looked at as the Indo-Canada Chamber of Toronto. So it is criticism that we have taken very seriously, something that we're going to address. And we also have councils across Canada that we are going to rekindle and get more powered up this year. So without further ado, we will move on. So my name is Vijay Thomas. I'm the president of the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce. I am also, in my day job, I run a software company. This seems like a day job to me right now. There's a lot happening, but it is still a volunteer job. So thank you very much, those of you joining for the first time. This is something that we do every Thursday. We have Thursday talks at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. If you join us on Facebook, you will have something interesting people to meet or interesting subjects being discussed. So moving on, what are we going to be talking about today? So today we're going to talk about Indo-Canadian leaders transforming Canada. This is our first session on this topic. We have the Honorable Prasad Panda, Alberta's Infrastructure Minister, and the Honorable Chandra Arya, Member of Parliament from Nepean, Ontario, and also the member of the Standing Committee on International Trade. And we've got some questions for you, MP Arya, on specifically international trade, because we are the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce. So we'd like them to share the journey as Indo-Canadians. Politicians discuss their responsibilities, and obviously we will take questions. So those of you who have joined us on Zoom can put your questions in the Q&A section. Those of you joining us on Facebook can put in your questions under comments, and we will take your questions to both the Indo-Canadian leaders. Now, moving on, at the ICCC, we have a very, very big event coming up. I'll just spend a minute on this. 10 days, 10 states. This is a big trade mission that we're having to India. We're going to India virtually, and we will be visiting 10 states over 10 days. We have the Honorable Mary Yang, the Minister of Trade for Canada. We have Ontario's Minister, Vic Fideli. We've got a bunch of them that have already confirmed participation. We have, on the India side, Invest India, Startup India. So we have a really, really high-powered delegation that we will be taking to this trade mission, 10 days, 10 states. So what's happening there? This is the first ever at this scale. The tentative dates are May 11th to May 25th. And this is a great opportunity, if those of you are watching, to please participate. All levels of government, also businesses that want to import from India, export to India, invest in India, need investors from India, all different kinds of permutation combinations where we're looking to make those things happen. Moving on. So where are we going? The 10 states: Andhra Pradesh, Goa, Gujarat, Haryana, J&K, Karnataka, Odisha, Rajasthan, UP, and Maharashtra. And the focus areas are, moving on, focus sectors: ICT, startups, tourism, food, pharma, medical devices, and healthcare. So any of you watching, if you're in these sectors and interested in trade with India, or investment to or from India, please let us know. Moving on. So we have a little disclaimer before we start anything. So the information provided webinars is conducted by ICCC for general information purpose, do not constitute legal or professional advice. There's some stuff in the middle that I'll let you read. And at the bottom, the views expressed by the speakers are their own personal opinion, do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the ICCC. Now, with that out of the way, here are two leaders today. We have Mr. Prasad Panda, Infrastructure Minister, Alberta, and Mr. Chandra Arya, Member of Parliament for Nepean, Ontario. So we will start with Mr. Prasad Panda. Mr. Prasad Panda, a little introduction about him. He was first elected in a by-election in 2015. Prasad Panda is the United Conservative MLA for Calgary, Edgemont, a professional engineer by trade with decades of experience working in oil and gas around the world. Prasad is honored to serve as the UCP's Government Minister for Infrastructure. In this role, he is responsible for construction of new schools, hospitals, and government buildings throughout Alberta. He's also served as a United Conservatives energy critic, as well as a shadow minister for economic development and trade. So fantastic to have Mr. Panda here. Before I let Mr. Panda have the stage, I must say he has a sense of humor. So we will just show you right now. Right there, Mr. Panda. I found this from your the Twitter account. So this is Panda meeting Panda on National Panda Day. So fantastic. It requires somebody to make fun of themselves. I think that's a fantastic skill that you have, Mr. Panda. And with that, over to you, sir. We'd like to know a little bit about how do you get into politics? What do you do? And a little introduction, between 5 to 10 minutes. And obviously, we need more time in a very conversational manner later on. But right now, we'd like to hear from you something about yourself. What do you do? And how did you get into this position?
Namaste, Vijay ji. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, sir. Loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you. And namaste, Chandra ji. Good to meet you virtually. And it's my honor to represent Alberta at Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce virtual event. I appreciate you inviting us to this virtual event because you made my day when you said it's not just Toronto based, but I'm so pleased that you recognize Alberta is in Canada. So happy to be here on the panel with Mr. Arya. And thank you, Vijay, again for inviting me. And I would like to thank all your listeners for taking time to join us today. And I appreciate you taking the lead in providing a series of presentations to your viewers through Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce. As Vijay previously mentioned, my name is Prasad Panda. I was elected to Alberta legislature in 2015 when Premier Prentice, my predecessor, quit his seat. So I took that in a by-election, and I happened to be the only Wild Rose representative back then in Calgary. We won 21 seats outside of Calgary, but mine was the first breakthrough. So there you go. So then I worked as a Shadow Minister of Economic Development and Trade. And then when Mr. Jason Kenney returned to Alberta to unite both conservative parties in Alberta, we formed United Conservative Party. I got re-elected in 2019 in Calgary, Edgemont, and then rest is history. So now currently I'm the Minister of Infrastructure in the cabinet of Premier Jason Kenney. And for decades, Alberta has been an economic powerhouse in Canada. So a strong Alberta is good for a strong Canada. In Alberta, we used to have high wages, abundant natural resources, and it was a sought-after place for jobs with plenty of natural resources and manpower. But let me talk about this important relationship with India, because so both the countries are democracies, and India is the fastest growing economy and the largest democracy in the world, and Canada is a fellow Commonwealth country. So your organization, Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce, I heard you're there since 1977, promoting bilateral trade between our native India and my adopted home, Canada. And perhaps no two countries in the world are better suited to a productive trade relationship than India and Canada. And to tell you about my journey, so I'm relatively a new immigrant. I'm only here for about 18 years. And then, my journey started in oil and gas in Canada. I used to work for Suncor Energy. So I worked in that industry 28 years as an engineer. Back home in India, I used to work for Reliance Industries. So, um, so naturally, when I immigrated to Canada, Alberta was the place because of the natural resources Alberta has and also the job opportunities Alberta provided for me and my family. I moved here to have a better future for my son and future grandchildren. And I chose Alberta because that used to be a debt-free state in Canada. So that's how I ended up coming to Alberta. And then I got interested in politics. I thought the governments of the day, um, um, they could have managed the economy better. So that's why I ran for office. People in downtown Calgary, first when I ran for an opposition party, they said, "Oh, you should go and check your head. Why are you going and running for an opposition party, leaving a well-paid job in energy sector?" I said, either we can keep complaining or take action, participating in this democratic process. That's how I got interested, because I wanted a strong Alberta to be better for Canada. But, over a period of time, we realized this relationship with India, due to domestic political squabbles, we couldn't, export our products to India to the advantage of both countries, because in India they have plenty of people, and they're very good at technology and manufacturing and other sectors. Particularly, India did exceedingly well during Y2K time. They sent all IT professionals to all over the world to fix Y2K bug. And now recently, COVID-19 brought up other excellence out of India, which is vaccines manufacturing and research. So today, thanks to India, so they are able to help even Canada by providing life-saving vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines. So through your media, I would like to thank India for that. And as an Indo-Canadian, I take this very seriously. I appreciate the public service. My fellow Indo-Canadian Chandra Arya is involved. It's not easy, but the motive should be seva, service. That's our Indian spirit. We are in politics not for self-advancement or for selfish reasons. We owe it to Canadians who accepted us, given us opportunities. It's our turn to give it back. So we should resolve ourselves to make it better Canada than we found by giving back and make sure that future generations have better opportunities than us. That's why recently, when Alberta got into huge deficit and debt due to the global economic downturn and crash in international oil price and demand crunch due to COVID-19, we are looking at opportunities to diversify our economy. So we are not dependent on this roller coaster of oil prices. So one country we are looking at is India, because India is the fastest growing economy in the world. And also because of the cultural ties we have with India in Canada, we have um, uh, a big population of Indo-Canadians in Canada. So we want to work for the prosperity of both Canadians and Indians. So Indian market can provide us opportunity, because India needs a lot of energy, and also our pulses and lentils. So Canada is very rich in natural resources, and we have a lot of agricultural production in Canada. So Canada can feed and fuel India. And also in my own Ministry of Infrastructure, we are investing unprecedented amount of dollars. Like the next 3 years capital plan is $21 billion, relatively for a small population of 4.5 million people in Alberta. We are investing a lot. Mainly because we want to recover the economy and grow the economy, and also diversify the economy. To do all that, we need vital infrastructure. We are partnering with Government of Canada to do more social and economic infrastructure projects that will create local jobs and also bring back prosperity to Alberta. As I said before, a strong Alberta will help Canada to be stronger. And in that journey, I would play my role to bring Alberta close to India and create opportunities, both economic, and also strengthen the relations, both economic and cultural ties between Alberta and India. And I would like to thank you for bringing us together today to discuss the matters of concerns for both Canada and India. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Panda. Very good, articulation of a lot of things happening, of how you caught into the whole equation, and how you see some of these things happening, and also the emphasis on infrastructure. As you know, I think a lot of people are talking about with COVID, build back better. I think that message, I think, is loud and clear there. So fantastic, Mr. Panda, and I'm sure we will have a lot of questions for you as well. And so now we'll come to our second speaker, Mr. Chandra Arya, Member of Parliament for Nepean, Ontario. Chandra Arya's passion to serve the community and strengthen the middle class motivated him to enter politics with three main objectives: affordable housing for all, providing retirement income security to 11 million working Canadians without workplace pensions, and ensure Canadian society and economy remain robust and competitive in the global knowledge-based economy, thus securing prosperity for children and grandchildren. So definitely something that I think Mr. Panda as well touched upon: children, grandchildren, better life. I think we've got two leaders here that are thinking far ahead. So I think he's also member of the Standing Committee on International Trade and former chair of the Indo-Canada Ottawa Business Chamber. And I was just, ribbing MP Arya a little bit. The ICOBC is an offshoot of the ICCC, but we will not hold it against him. He was one of the founding members there, but we think everything will be good, and we're a 44-year-old organization. We've had a lot of history, and we on that note, I'd like to welcome Mr. Arya. We'd like to know a little bit about yourself. How do you get into politics? What do you do? What's your view of the future? And obviously after which we will have question and answers. Mr. Arya, you're on mute, sir.
Even with all that, we still have to learn mute and unmute seamlessly. Thank you, Vijay. And it's very nice to meet virtually Honorable Mr. Panda, Prasad Panda. Mr. Panda handles a very important portfolio: infrastructure. In fact, infrastructure is one of the main drivers of our economic growth in the short, medium, and long-term future. I'm so also glad to note that he was the shadow minister for economic development and trade. That gives a great background for him, with his engineering training. Mr. Panda, like you, I came, I think maybe after 1 or 2 years. I'm also here for about 16, 17 years. And like you, I was trained engineer, but I will never claim I was an engineer. I started my career as an engineer. Then I was a banker, financing industries. Then I had my own manufacturing unit. Then I was in Middle East, setting up industrial project in all these 6 GCC countries. Came to Canada. I was an investment advisor with CIBC Wood Gundy. Then I was an executive at a technology firm before I decided to enter politics. So like you, I have got different backgrounds, and the main thing is that giving back to the society. And I also had another objective. I was active in the various community organizations, from immigration services to Affordable Housing Corporation to I was also on the board of Invest Ottawa. In all these roles, I was advocating. If you imagine there's a room where there's a board meeting going on, I was standing outside the board, pitching and advocating on various issues to the people who are going inside the board to make decisions. Then one day I thought, why should I stand outside? Why don't I go inside myself? So with that, I joined politics, and there are several other factors that led to it, and here I am. So I will take a few minutes to briefly talk about the international trade. Canada is rich, Canada is prosperous because of our international trade. 65% of our GDP comes from international trade. I think 1 in 6 workers in Canada, they are directly or indirectly connected with international trade. So international trade is very, very important for Canada, for us to continue our prosperity, to make sure that our children and grandchildren have got the same access to the standard of living we are enjoying today. We need to make sure that the trade goes on smoothly. All the governments previously, at the federal government, the conservative government, the previous liberal government, and the current liberal government, we all have worked hard to get various agreements done. Today, we have great many international free trade agreements with Europe, United Kingdom, Asia Pacific countries, obviously with the US and Mexico. We have all those agreements. We have, preferential access to 1.5 billion customers today. So we all have that. But the current thing, I'll come to the pandemic. The current major issue is to use this preferential access, use these free trade agreements so that we can continue to grow our exports. And for that, personally, I'm pitching for the idea of a chief trade implementation officer. We have got a great federal negotiating team who have negotiated wonderful international agreements with so many different countries. They have got great knowledge of so many sectors, from agriculture or agri-food sector to the iron and steel sector to manufacturing automobiles to knowledge-based economy. They have worked these things yet. Now we want to use their knowledge to make sure that these agreements are implemented well, to make sure that Canadian exporters, more than the exporters, I would say the Canadian businesses who are not looking at the export market, or rather who are not looking beyond the North American market, they are aware of what the possibilities are out there and take it from there. This pandemic obviously has hit us hard, not just Canada, but almost every other country in the world. It has hit us very hard. And this pandemic has also brought in great deal of protectionism in various countries, because every country wanted to safeguard the interests of their own citizens. And we were caught in the midfire. We had challenging time early in the pandemic in accessing the personal protective equipment like the mask, etc. And now with the vaccines, however, we are trying to work out. Last year, a few months back, it was estimated around 97 countries responded to pandemic with restrictions, with over 200 restrictions. And many of those restrictions are continue to be there today. So a trading country like ours, we were obviously hurt. And for us, this is important that we continue to make sure that the borders are open, because we love this rules-based trading because it is an advantage to all. Now, the trade we are taking, two major things we are considering in our approach to international trade. The first is our trade in knowledge-based and data-driven sectors. Mr. Thomas did read one of the objectives of my interest in the global knowledge-based economy. And that is also a major factor today in international trade. As I said, we are rich, we are prosperous, our standard of living is high because we had the natural advantage of natural resources or forestry products or minerals. These were the advantages we had all these years. But the future of the global economy is going towards the knowledge-based economy. And for that, we had to be competitive. Our children today, is the flat world out there for international global economy and international trade. Our children face competition from Shanghai in China, Tokyo, Japan, Sydney, Australia, Frankfurt, Germany, Mumbai, India. Everybody are competitive in this global knowledge-based economy, and we have to be at the forefront. And for us as a trading nation, we have to take steps today so that we are there. The cities like Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, we have got artificial intelligence, we have got health technologies, autonomous vehicle technologies, agri-tech, clean tech. These sectors are growing. They have not yet found their natural standing at the forefront of the global economy yet. Not only we have to make sure that we are at the forefront of those economies, but we also have to help them export that knowledge and to other parts of the thing. And diversification of trade is also very important. 70 to 75% of our international trade is with North America, with the US and Mexico. Many of our Canadian companies, they are so comfortable with the North American trade that they don't look beyond that. We need to diversify that. The last 4 years in the US has shown up. It has given us a wake-up call on why we need to diversify our economy, because we cannot be dependent on one single market for our trade. It's where we trade, what we trade, who trades. All these things are most important. I know because of the time constraint, I will stop at it, but two quick things I want to say, that we are taking a Team Canada approach under the umbrella of Canada Trade, what we call as a trade toolbox, whether it is a Trade Commissioner Service Network or the Export Development Canada or the BDC or the Canadian Commercial Corporation or Investment in Canada. We take them as the trade toolbox to help Canadians export. And the last thing I would like to mention is that, just to quickly mention that we have funding available to help Canadians export. We have got the CAN export for targeted to SMEs, up to 75,000 in funding we give to SMEs to break into new international market. Then we have got CAN export innovation, once again up to 75,000 for Canadian SMEs or academic institutions, to develop R&D collaborations through partnership in foreign markets. And to help organizations like ICCC, we have a Canada Export Association, annual funding up to $400,000 for Canadian National Industry Association and trade organization, so that they can help pursue the international business development activities. And finally, we have CAN Export Community Investments with the annual funding of $500,000 to help Canadian communities and not-for-profit, locally based organizations attract, retain, and expand foreign direct investment. I will stop. There are a lot of things we can discuss. I always feel the best way to continue discussion is through question and answers. I look forward to your questions. Thank you so much again for inviting me here.
Thank you, MP Arya. That was fantastic. I think you touched upon a lot of points there. One thing that comes to mind is if you want to make a difference, and if you're pitching to the people that are going to the boardroom, might as well go to the boardroom. I think that's going to stick to me at least, and I think to everybody else as well. Rather than complain and you can make a difference if you are actually in the boardroom. So with that, we'll take a couple of questions. We've got a couple of questions coming to us already. So the question, I will give this question to Mr. Panda. Mr. Panda, this is basically the question is about Alberta oil, right? With Alberta oil, right now, it is very critical for the country as a whole that Alberta does well. Because as oil goes well, our currency does well. So there's a lot of things that Alberta is critical, and people don't realize this. That right now the increase in oil prices is basically what's strengthening the dollar, the Canadian dollar. So what is your take in terms of? Do you think Alberta? How can Alberta now with the pipeline not being there as well? How does Alberta, Mr. Arya talked about diversifying Canada's trade, but Alberta itself, markets for its oil, what is the diversification strategy? What do you think, as Canadians, we're interested that Alberta does well. So what is your take there as a minister in the Alberta government? Sir, you're on mute, sir.
Vijayji, that's a very good point you raised. When Alberta does well, all of Canada does well. And also the product here we're talking about, the energy products we're talking about, that contributes a lot, not only in Alberta but for employment everywhere and business opportunities for all Canadians. If you look at any infrastructure projects in all over Canada in the past, so they were directly or indirectly financed and funded by the revenues from our energy industry. So there are some concerns about environment. That's a very valid concern. But Alberta and the energy industry of Canadian companies that follow environmental standards or human rights standards and the regulations that we follow in Canada are top-notch compared to other jurisdictions in the world. So that's why in Canada, we have to first think about Canadian energy security, then North American energy security, then how do we help other countries? So there will be still demand for oil in the next 30 years or 40 years. As countries come out of this pandemic, there will be a sharp rebound in their economies and their demand for oil will come back. And it's going to stay for the next 30, 40 years till we find affordable, disruptive technologies that can replace fossil fuels. Till then, we have to find ways for countries like India, we're talking about here, with the population of 1.3 billion people, majority of them, I think almost 700 million or 800 million of that 1.3 is younger, below 35-year-old. So they have their own aspirations to have a gainful employment and higher living standards. So I have a lived experience growing up in rural southern India. People didn't have access. Even now, they don't have reliable electricity. They don't have clean cooking fuel in many of the rural communities in India. So they ration bottled gas. So countries like that, when Canadians talk about reducing emissions, it's a global problem. We need to find a global solution. So by providing clean natural gas to countries like India and China, we can actually reduce the global emissions. That's where Alberta can play a big role, like you correctly observed. Alberta is rich in natural resources, whether it is oil or gas or agriculture or forestry. And also our government is very consciously developing these natural resources in a responsible manner with the highest environmental standards. And we also have good human rights and employment standards, unlike other exporting countries. So within Canada, so we had to get Canadians together because it's about the prosperity for all Canadians. So all Canadians share the benefits of a prosperous Alberta when we create that economic opportunities, create jobs for Canadians. Alberta will appreciate other Canadian provinces working together. As our member of parliament, Honorable Arya, he mentioned we should have a Team Canada approach. So I really appreciate that. So we should have a Team Canada approach, and we had to secure supplies within Canada by not blocking, interprovincial trade or international trade. So we had to create infrastructure for exporting our products, so that marketing infrastructure is very critical going forward. And Alberta is also looking at ways to diversify our economy. We are investing a lot in new, in trying to attract new sectors, whether it is tech sector, manufacturing, fintech, biotech, infotech, pharma tech. We're looking at all opportunities and also try to do more value-add products within Canada. So when you export our natural resources unprocessed, you don't get full value of it. But when you do more processing here and ship the products as value adds, whether it is in petrochemicals or agri-food processing, all those things we are looking at. And also Alberta is looking at vaccine manufacturing, pharma and biotech development within Alberta. Mr. Arya made a good observation about every other country trying to put their country first when they talked about vaccine nationalism and all those things. So we are aware of it. That's why next time, Canada is hit with another, touch wood not, God forbid not, but if it happens, we want Canada to be self-sufficient, and Alberta is going to play its role. That's why we developed our own PPE, personal protective equipment. Last 1 year, we became self-sufficient. In fact, Alberta shared our surplus supplies to the neighboring provinces. We sent to even Ontario, Quebec, everywhere. And now we are looking at vaccine manufacturing. So if Canadians need vaccines in future, Alberta can play a role in protecting health of all Canadians. So those are things we are looking at. We are going through difficulties. But as I said, Alberta, I chose to immigrate to Alberta because Alberta used to be debt-free. In 2005, we paid off our debt in full, but today we are facing challenging headwinds. But I'm very optimistic and I'm very hopeful by working together with all other provinces in Canada, we can come out of these challenges much more stronger at the other end.
And, yeah, Mr. Panda, we'll have to take a couple more questions, but absolutely on those lines, you're also the person that put motion 505, which wanted to ban inbound oil coming from countries which have less, not as good human rights, record. And the irony of it is, in Canada, we have some resource-rich provinces and we have resource-poor provinces, and we're actually importing oil in Eastern Canada from other parts of the world, whereas from the Western to Canada, and that's something, I think it's something that I don't know we're going to solve it in today's thing, but I'll just quickly, do you see hope? Do you see this is, are we going to be solving the East-West problem? Can we have Alberta oil flowing east? Is that something do you think is going to happen quick? I have to get to Mr. Arya as well.
Yeah, sure. That's a very good point. That's about Canadian oil for Canadians. That was the premise of my motion 505 during opposition. But that's where we need the government of Canada to work with us and with the eastern provinces, because they are under the threat now when Michigan governor is trying to shut down Line 5, which brings refined fuels to meet the heating and transportation needs of Eastern Canadians, including Ontarians, Quebecers. So we had to think about that to provide energy security for all Canadians. So that's where other provinces should not, obstruct the pipelines, because pipelines are the safest mode of transportation and also cheapest mode of transportation. So we had to build infrastructure coast to coast to improve internal trade within Canada, and also to provide export opportunities for all Canadian products. You observed it very carefully. Mr. Arya also said that we had to diversify our products, and also we had to diversify our markets. Right now, most of our trade is, particularly this energy trade, is with only one country south of the border. If don't take our product, or if they stop taking our product, we'll be in trouble as a country, because Alberta exports to US contribute to the majority of Canadian exports to US. So it's a very valid point. That's why we had, as Canadians, we all had to be on the same page and work together as Team Canada to solve Canada's problems, and also to help other countries like...
So thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Panda. I have to get to Mr. Arya. We're short on time here. Mr. Arya, before we get to the crux of it, now, not as your trade thing, but as a member of the government in power, what is your view on what Mr. Panda said? Is that do we see that as happening sometime soon? And I'm not going to put you on the mat there, but quickly, just a yes/no answer. What's your quick view on that?
No, absolutely. Minister Panda made excellent points. In fact, what he mentioned, it also falls under the responsibilities of organizations like ICCC. He mentioned the importance of Canadian energy security. That's number one. But more importantly, he touched on the inter-provincial trade barriers. I talk about the international trade agreement we have with 50 countries, 20 countries, with 1.5 billion customers across the world. But we don't have our own free trade within our country. See, that is where the organizations like ICCC, you guys have to step in. You have to use your members all across Canada to pitch, advocate, and make sure that the provinces come together so that we can be one trading nation first internally before we can look externally.
Fantastic. I think, Ms. Arya, absolutely point taken. As the president, I will make sure that we table this at our next meeting, and we'll see what we can do about this. So absolutely point well taken. Now, we have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Arya. With the phone conversation with Prime Minister Trudeau and Prime Minister Modi, there were a couple of headwinds in the Indo-Canada relationship. We at the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce very strongly feel that this has broken the ice. This is a step in the right direction. I think on the strength of we receiving the vaccines, we should push full steam ahead and move with the trade. There is a lot of opportunity in trade. What are your thoughts? What do you think we should do? And do you echo our thoughts that is probably a change in direction, and we should just follow the positivity at the very top and go with that?
Yeah, you put it very diplomatically, headwinds between Canada and India. Obviously, let's not beat around the bush. Yes, there has been issues. There is a bit, the relations were frozen for quite some time. Last year, when Foreign Minister of India, Jai Prakash, came here, there was a talk. And he said, let's put the past dogmas behind and let's move forward. And then some other issues took to the forefront. See, Canada and India are natural allies. Canadian government, whether it's the blue stripe government or the red stripe government, we all recognize India is a natural partner for us, not just because we are a democracy, not just we both have the rule of law, not just because we have got open, liberal, free societies, but economically also for us, India is a strategic partner. And from the international security point of view, India, with its size and its location in South Asia, is a very strategic partner for Canada and the Western democracies. So the trade between India and Canada is growing. We wish there is a lot of potential to go beyond it. However, from the Canadian side, as you may already know, we have made close to $52 billion investments in India, even without the Foreign Investment Protection Agreement yet. I know this has been hanging on balance for last 10 years. I think since the day I joined ICOBC, since the day I visited ICCC first, we had these discussions of the Foreign Investment Protection Agreement with India that continues to be there today. Yes, there are certain headwinds now. I'm sure it will be settled down. This is a natural thing in a democracy. See what Indian internal political considerations and the Canadian political domestic considerations, sometimes they do bring in a bit of misunderstanding. And in the long run, Canada knows, India knows we are natural partners. There's a lot of potential for us to grow. A lot of Indian investment is coming into Canada. At the same time, Canadian investment is also happening there. And we look forward towards that.
Yeah, so Mr. Arya, a couple of additional questions there. People have been talking about, IP agreement, for like in almost a decade now, free trade agreement with India, CEPA. So any thoughts on your thoughts on that? Is this another 10 years or is this, what do you think? I mean, is this going to be done in our lifetime?
So the problem has been that it is not that the Canadian government, again, I'm talking about the last 10, 15 years that I've been here in this country. From day one, I was interested in Canadian trade. So last 15, 16 years I've been here, I've been noticing the problem is that there's a mismatch. The Indian side has got some concerns. The Canadian side also has got some concerns. If you look at Canada, we have been able to enter into free trade agreement with most of the countries.
Almost all the G20 and almost everybody, yeah.
Exactly, except for China, India, and Russia, we have got free trade agreement with all major economies. So we have been successful in that. I'm not blaming India. I'm saying that India understands their constraints because India is a developing economy. Honorable Panda pointed out, India still has got problems in the rural areas where the poor still got energy rationed. So there are issues with India is not comfortable. That will happen if there is a free trade agreement signed. So that is preventing India because they have to see the benefit they are going to get for the Indian economy from the free trade agreement. That's where there is a bit of talking of intellectual property rights. We need intellectual property protection because Canada, we invest billions of dollars in our R&D. So we need that protection so that at the same time, I can understand, in Indian pharmaceutical, in the generic drugs, as you are all aware, how India has brought down the cost of production in the generic drugs market, wherein there is a bit of play on intellectual property rights. So yes, it is a difficult topic. So what we know is that a bilateral agreement on things like international property rights may be difficult, but a multilateral agreement with WTO and other multilateral agencies on that platform, it is possible for us to come to a good understanding.
Okay. So no, thank you very much, Mr. Arya, and specifically as Indo-Canadian as well as part of the Trade Committee, what would you do? What is your role? What is your mission? Before the end of your tenure, have you taken on any goals that let me get this thing signed or anything like that? Is there any goals that you might have on yourself?
As I said, we have signed enough agreements. For me, implementation.
No, with India specifically. With India.
With India, absolutely. Listen, I wish I can say I know practically it is not possible to have anything in the few months, but I go back to the time when the Indian Foreign Minister Jai Prakash came, and if you have not listened, I think Goenka lecture he delivered in 2019, I guess, in the 2019 beginning. He made India position very clear. Let's put the past dogmas behind. Let us understand there will always be differences amongst the friendly countries. Let's look beyond the differences and look where we can work together. I think that was the route we were going, and suddenly something propped up, and I hope soon it will be done. And instead of having an agreement signed with India, I prefer to have more bilateral visits, bilateral interaction, what you're doing, 10-day, 10-state, more those kind of things happening, so that the businessmen from Canada and India can meet each other and take it up, irrespective of the political leaders on both countries.
Absolutely. No, on that note, that's our take officially at the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce. Our view is, the rising tide with trade will float all boats. Right, but I will go to Mr. Panda. One last question to you, Mr. Panda. We're just almost out of time. So we've heard what Mr. Arya mentioned. So what can Alberta do in this? Can Alberta help? I know this is more a country to country thing, but Alberta on its own with the India equation, is there anything that Alberta is doing or can do, or any suggestions that you might have?
Well, we will engage Canadian embassy in India, but on direct relations, we are looking out for markets for our agricultural and oil and gas products, and also India can contribute a lot for Alberta's economy too. We are trying to bring Indian students to Alberta so they can take advantage of the world-class universities in Calgary and Edmonton and other Alberta cities. So that's one thing, and we will. So we also have to be cognizant. Many Canadians doesn't know how complex is India. There are many mini Indias within India. So they have 28 states and 6 or 7 union territories with different languages. They believe in unity and diversity. They are the world's largest democracy. We had to respect it. We had to work with them. We had to focus on issues what unite us than what divide us. They have their domestic issues. We have our domestic issues. But as Indo-Canadians, we came here to have better prosperity as Canadians for ourselves. And in that process, if we can have better economic and social relations with India, that will benefit both countries, because India, they want to increase their economy from $4 trillion to $5 trillion very soon, and I hope Canada will get a cake of that share.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Mr. Panda. Thank you very much, Mr. Arya. Mr. Panda, obviously Alberta is doing something right. We heard the latest announcement. Infosys is setting up their headquarters in Calgary. 500 people, 500 jobs. So fantastic. So you're obviously, chipping at it. And fantastic. And I'm really, really glad to have both of you today on our first inaugural Indo-Canadian Leaders thing. So thank you very much to both of you. And we'd like to just thank some of our sponsors as well. So we'll just have a look at that. But thank you, MP Arya. Thank you, Minister Panda. Thank our technology sponsor, Tangentia. We'd like to also thank our annual sponsors, SBI Bank Canada, ICICI Bank, Raymond James, Seneca, GT20, Gold sponsor, Turkish Airways, and our media sponsors, The Weekly Voice and PTC Punjabi. So thank you again to our audience. Without you, we don't have the show. So thank you very much for coming in. And if you want to know how to become a member, and as I said, a member anywhere in Canada, please write to ICCC, icconline.org. On that note, again, thank you very much, Minister Panda and Arya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.